Okay, so after that, we need our public class. Main, opening curly bracket. And then we're also gonna have our public static void main function, or a main function. So public static void main opening string, because we want the output to be a string, the arguments, args, opening and closing square bracket, and then closing parenthesis, opening curly bracket. So you should have your basic setup just like this. If you don't, and you always have to reference an older file, I suggest that maybe you take a screenshot of this and then jot it down in your notes. But this is something that's going to be important to kind of have down pat. Make sure you have two closing curly brackets, because one will close the main, one will close the function main, and one will close the class main. So that's something that you're always going to remember that you have as well. So let's just do a simple output. We don't have to declare a Boolean yet, because we're going to use true and false. And Java will recognize true and false as as Boolean without declaring it, because we're not creating a variable at this time. So let's take a look. I'm just going to skip a line here to kind of give you guys some visual white space, but I'm going to do a simple output. So I'm going to do system.out.println. And in here, I'm going to do my comparison. So I'm going to compare a true and a false. So I'm going to do true, and then a double ampersand, which means and, false. So this is going to say, hey, if something is true and it's false, what's that output going to be? What does my computer say the output's going to be? And then you'll need a semicolon after that line. So this is basically I'm asking my computer to compare this statement true and false, and it's going to print out the result. So what do you think it's going to print out? The word true or false? Somebody said false, right? You think? I don't know. Is that the voice of the people? Yeah, that's yes. Okay, so it's going to compare true and false, and let's see what the output is. I'm going to run this. I'm going to move this up. False. It's false. False. Nice job, people. Wait, it'll become relevant eventually. Don't worry about it. Yeah. This is just, at this point, we're just doing some basic code. I know it seems like, well, why would we compare true and false this way? The reason why we're talking about Boolean, because at some point we're going to be comparing strings, or we're going to be comparing numbers. And we're going to have to kind of do a, hey, is this true? And then we're going to have to decide if it is true, what's going to be the outcome. So for example, like Chloe said, you guys at some point might have, like when you guys use log into your computer and it asks for your username and password. It's in essence, your computer is doing something like a Boolean test. It's checking this, it's comparing what your password or your username and your password. So basically it's saying, hey, if both of them are true, then you have access to your computer. If one is true and one is false, then guess what? It's all false, right? And you won't be able to log in. So that's where that comparison will come in. But for now, I just want to show you that your computer can recognize those kinds of statements. Granted, we're not comparing user input, but it's still comparing those kind of conditionals of true and false. So let's actually do some comparisons with just not necessarily user input, but with programming input. So let's go ahead and type in, I'm going to get rid of this, and let's go ahead and input a variable or a few variables. Let's declare a variable. So int, it's going to be an integer, x is equal to 79. And I'm also going to say I'm going to declare another variable called y, and that one's going to be 46. And then let's declare another variable z is going to be negative 10. So here I just declared 3 variables, x, y, and z, and they're all integers. Now you could do these in 3 separate line statements, but sometimes it's easier just to put them all in one line. So if you wanted to, I'm just going to erase this to show you another alternative. You could do int x equals 79, int y equals 46, and int z equals negative 10. So I'll just put, or you could do one line. Int. Does that make sense how you guys can do it in separate lines and or 3 different lines? Okay. All right, so let's do some comparisons. So let's do a system out. What's the spell? System out that print line. And let's do some things here. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do x, which is 79, is greater than 109. So in this, it's comparing if x is greater than 109, and then it's going to print out what that response is. So what do we think the response is going to be? False. So let's run that. And the answer is false. We could also do both of these together. So let's do x is greater than 109. I'm using parentheses inside of that print line. And let's do y is equivalent to 46. So here, it's first going to take a look, is x greater than 109? And it's going to take a look at if y is equal to 46. And then both of those statements have to be true in order for that statement to be true. So if I run this, should give me false. Now, if I change this operator to be, instead of greater than, if I did less than, this would ask me, hey, is x less than 109? Yep. And is y equal to 46? Yep. So if I run this time, it should give me true. So this is a quick calculation, a quick conditional, and then a simple output. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, with this one, let's also declare some Booleans. So I'm going to get rid of this system out. A second. And let's declare some Boolean types here. So I'm going to go back up where I declare stuff, and I'm going to declare Boolean. And I'm going to declare some variables. So let's go ahead and declare, let's use the letter, T for true. So I'm going to say T could be true. Actually, no, let's do A be true and B to be false. So when we're doing this, let's go ahead and do some system printouts. So system dot out dot print line. And then let's do some comparisons. So let's say it is, let's say Z is equivalent to -5, or the letter B. So let's just say this was a problem and you wanted to take a look and say, hey, what would my computer print out? Would it print out true or false? If it did a system print line of this condition of Z is equal to -5 or B, which is false, what would that whole statement be? Is Z equivalent to -5? No, because it's actually -10. So the first statement would be false. So, oops, let's do that. So it'd be false at first. Or B is what? Equivalent to false. So my printout or my output is false or false. My output is false. Let's check. Let's run that. And that is correct. So for example, if I had this, let's say on some type of quiz at some point, and I gave you that, I gave you those statements, I might ask you what that output's going to be. And you'd have to understand, hey, your computer would compare Z and -5 and then compare that statement to the Boolean B, which is false, and then the output would be false. You might also do something, you might use the not sign. So let's take a look at this here. I'm going to erase that. Erase my output. And maybe I do something like not x is not equal to 10. So I might do a not operator or a negation. So if we're taking a look at this, we would say, it would first look at the parentheses and say, hey, is x not equal to 10? Is that true or false? True. And then it would be not true. So the output should be false. Let's run. That is correct. If I didn't want, let's say I didn't say, let's say I wanted to do my Booleans here. In here, and then I'm also going to do or A. So, order of operation tells me, I'm going to do the parentheses first. X is not equal to 10. That would be true. And then I have to look at my order of operator precedence. It's going to go with the not sign. So it's going to be not true, which would be false. So it would be false. And then it would compare the or sign. Or A, which is false. Oops. Or an A is what, guys? What does A stand for? True. So now I'm comparing, false or true. If something's false or true, what's the answer going to be? True or false? True. It's going to be true. So for example, as we start doing more advanced code, and we're going to be doing comparing input and output. If, for example, I mean, even though this is really simple, if we are comparing something like username and password, if the first statement is false but the second statement is true, you might have some program where they just have to get either their username or their password correct in order to gain access. Something like this would be some type of Boolean comparison would be used to see if something is true or false. And you would use those kind of operators. So even though this seems kind of basic and a little bit odd why we're not doing any input, and it's all pretty self-obvious because it's embedded inside the program, we're kind of taking a step back and just doing, hey, internally, what would your computer output before we start applying it then to user input. Questions about this? No? Okay. You guys have a class practice. And in fact, you're kind of just given all the code. You just need to run it. Just as a way to kind of practice this stuff, this Boolean stuff, and this declaration of true or false. But if you go back into your classroom and in the dashboard and click on this, where it says in-class Boolean test. It's not in terms of like a test or quiz. It's just a test to see if something is true or false. If you go into this, I'd like you guys to take a look at this problem. So in problems 1 through 5, so you will notice that there's problems here. And I'm going to, oh, it should be 1 through 4. Sorry, I cut it down to 4. If you go back to those 4 questions here, sorry about that. Da, da, da. All right. What I'd like you guys to do is you're going to assume the following and test the output. Modify the output so you know what problems correspond with the actual output that's being output. So for example, if you see problem 1, what I'd like you guys to do is you're going to do a code. So do a program. This is going to be your declarations. This stuff right here is going to be your declaration of variables. So you're basically, you can copy and paste, you can retype. And you're going to run these problems all in one code. However, for example, if I did this line of code, or if I included this line of code in my program, for the first question, I would have a system output. I would output that it's problem 1, and then it would show the answer to problem 1. So for the second one, you would change the system output to be, the print line would not only show the answer if it's like true or false kind of thing, but it also tell me, hey, this is problem 2. And same thing goes for 3 and 4. Does that make sense? So not only are you going to have output like true, false, true, true, false, but you're also going to tell me, hey, what problem that true or false goes with. Yes. So I'm not asking you necessarily to come up with your own program. I'm just asking you to modify the program that I'm giving you. So you're going to add your import libraries just to practice that. You're going to add your public class and your public void main. And then you're going to use this exact same declaration of variables. So you don't have to come up with your own. But it's just I want you guys to practice this for today. Probably take you 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes. When you get it done, you're going to submit it so I can take a look to make sure you've done the work. And then you'll be ready to go for tomorrow when we talk about user input and comparing different user input. Questions? All right. So this is, ideally, I'd like it to do at the end of class, but if you need more time, it might be homework. So that way we're ready to go tomorrow. You're not going to have class time tomorrow to work on it. So just try to get it done, and so that way I can kind of see where you guys are at, making sure hopefully you were listening. So that's it. Okay.
ask Miss Bauman. She's here.
Yep.
Okay. He's not sure how to correspond if it's true or false.
How does it correspond if it's true or false? So should I mean, I can do this first one.
Okay.
So you guys would have your import, Java.io, import, Java, util. You'd have your public class main, public static void main string arg. Right. So, for example, so now, guys, I asked you to use the same variables. So I'm going to declare my variables that I've given you. So it'd be int z equals 23. X is equal to, I don't remember, negative 109. And do I have one more here? Nope. So I have two integer variables. I have some doubles. So double C equals 2,345.19. I've got another double here. V equals 157.03. And then I have my Booleans. Boolean. I have the letter A. Oops. A is going to be false. And S is going to be true. So there's my declarations. Sorry, I'm going to undo this for a second. I think I just deleted something. Okay. So our first line here, we're going to test to see if something's true or false. I also said I'm going to declare some things. So I'm going to declare another Boolean. So for the first problem, I'm basically declaring another Boolean variable called Gus. And variable Gus is going to be equal to X is greater than 0 and C is equivalent to V. So what that is doing is it's going to test this and give me some type of answer, and it's going to assign it to the word Gus. So it's going to go back up here and say, hey, is X greater than -9? It's going to decide if it's true or false. And is C equal to V, which is false. So I am guessing, just based on looking at this, that it's going to assign the value of false to the word Gus. So if we wanted to, we could take a look at that first. So I could do a system.out print line. Maybe I first want to see what Gus is. So I can just type in Gus, what the value of Gus is. Then, according to my problem here, it says I want the answer to not Gus, or the opposite. So I'm going to do another system.out.print line. I'm going to tell my program to output that this was for problem 1. So I'm going to do problem 1. And then I'm going to actually give the result of not Gus. So in this print line, it's calculating what not Gus is. And it's going to spit out, is it true or false? Does that make sense before I run that? That's how it determines if it's true or false. It's doing the calculation for me inside that print line. And it's going to print whatever that calculation or whatever my computer determines. So if I run this, it's going to say that Gus was ultimately false. So here it goes back up. So it first prints out the line of whatever Gus is. So it's going to go back up to the Boolean Gus and say, hey, what is the value of Gus? So it's going to look at this part right here. It's going to say, hey, is X greater than 0? No. And is C equivalent to V? No. So the whole statement that I highlighted in blue right here is false, which means Boolean Gus is equal to false. Then it goes back down to the second line of printing out, hey, for problem 1, you are going to print out the answer to not Gus. So if Gus is false, it's basically saying not false, which is true.
Which is problem 1.
Which is problem 1. Yep.
I mean, which one is problem 1?
What? Nobody had problems with problem 1?
No, which one is problem 1? Like, what is problem 1? What is being defined as problem 1?
Oh, this right here. 1. So if you look at this, it says in problems 1 through 5. That should be 1 through 4. Here's a problem. I'm just asking you guys to run these codes. So, in problems 1 through 4, following the following, assume the following, that these are your integers. Test the output. So I'm giving you the code. So these are all 4 codes that you're doing. I just want you guys to run them for me. There's just different ways of typing things out. Does that answer it?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it? Yes, it does. So Keaton and Pepper is the two others. Are you usually true or false?
No.
Oh.
He's already better.
Oh.
He wrote the wrong code.
I mean, I realize that I gave you guys the code, but I just want you to be able to look at it and say, oh, I get how it's getting true or false based on the input. Okay. Because at some point, you guys are going to have user input, and so it's really important to know the basics before we start complicating things with different user input. Right now, we all have the same input, which is nice, so we can see it. Okay, any other questions?
Look at my thing. See the Brandon's calendar. I submitted it.
Does it work?
So yeah.
Then it's right.
I could be wrong if it's typed in the wrong time.
It could be.
It works, then what makes it
Like,
wrong?
Kevin wrote C equals C, so that's supposed to be C equals X. Maybe it's an example.
Okay, did you submit it in? Oh,
Yeah, I submitted
okay. Who asked me to look at it?
Ian. Voice number.
All right.
Not the voice, not the
Okay. Looks good. I will say, just some helpful hints, guys. I know because I divided it up into problems. Whenever you're declaring variables, it's always good practice just to declare them all at the top. So, if we have a problem in the future and you guys have to, like, all of a sudden you're being asked to declare a variable here, just make sure they're all together. So, for example, like this Boolean should probably be up at the top. Okay? It's just easier because then you're like, hey, I know where all my declarations are. But otherwise, looks good. All set. What? Who is this? I'm sure you guys are, it's all good if you're not getting any errors, but sure. All right, Zach, I'm going to ask you. So see how I said, hey, this is to problem 1, and it gives me the answer? I'm going to make you do the same thing for problems 2, 3, and 4. So for example, in the second printout, you would just put in quotation marks, problem 2, quotation marks, and then plus A or S. Okay? And then since I'm here, I can look at Julian's as well. Looks good, Julian. It's up to you if you want to do, was that Julian? It's up to you, Julian, if you want to do something like this where you have two print statements. You can combine the print statements by using quotation marks and then the plus sign and then the actual calculation. But it works. It just means more typing for you. That's all. It's not wrong. It's more of a preference. But just remember, the more coding we do, the more typing you have to do, the more you leave yourself vulnerable to typing errors. So, but otherwise, it's good. Nice. Who was that, Zach?